Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I debated whether or not I should post this, and my friends persuaded me to share. The characters are me, an entitled mother, and an annoying kid who doesn't appear in this story. Ever since the vaccine came out, I've decided to go out a little more often, so I tend to visit the park to do my homework. While writing my essay, I noticed a random lady looking at me strangely, but I ignored her. About 5 minutes later, the lady walked up to me, and this is the conversation that happened. The entitled mother pats my shoulder. Yeah, what is it? Do you know where you are? Yes, I'm very confused. Then why aren't you playing with the other kids? I don't know them. Plus, I don't like football. That's nonsense, you're a boy. You should play football, not play video games. I am not playing video games, I'm doing my homework. She gasps and interrupts me. You're selling drugs, aren't you? What? No, I'm not. You're lying, I am calling the police. Honestly, I was terrified. I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I was pretty stressed out at this point. I was so scared that I almost didn't realize she tried to steal my laptop. So I instantly yanked it from the table and held it tightly until the police arrived. When the police came, the entitled mother tried to make it seem like I was trying to sell her drugs. I didn't get to hear her twisted side, but all I heard was, "Look, he's wearing a hoodie and he's obviously into shitty things." The police asked me to show them my laptop, and after they inspected it, they knew the entitled mother was just crazy. The police tells her, "Ma'am, you're under arrest for false reports and harassing this kid." What? You can't do that. You need to arrest that disgusting person. The police ignored her rantings and took her to their car. That was how an entitled woman, out of the blue, decided to steal my laptop while accusing me of selling drugs. This is a little backstory. As a kid, my house caught on fire and I almost didn't make it out alive. I was sleeping on a toilet and didn't hear the fire alarms, and my parents couldn't find me. Luckily, I managed to wake up and get out by myself, but I didn't get out unscathed. My entire body was burned and I had to go through multiple surgeries. Everything but my face was back to normal. I was bullied a lot for how I looked, which made me wish I had died with the house. I'm a lot better now, but I still feel self-conscious about my face to the point that I wear a mask a lot, even before COVID. Now onto the story. I ordered some food at McDonald's and waited there when an entitled mother walked in with some kids. One of those kids saw me and asked his entitled mother, "Why is he wearing a mask?" "Oh, he's just mentally deranged," she answers him. I didn't really care as people like these are common for me. But what happened next, I did not expect. After she ordered, she walked up to me. "Hey, why are you wearing that mask?" "It's really personal, I don't want to talk about it." "Are you sick?" "No." "Well, take it off then." "What?" "No, why?" "You're traumatizing my kids while wearing that mask. Take it off." I was mad at this person, but then I thought of a way to make her shut up. Okay, I will. I take it off in a way only the entitled mother could see. She was shocked at how I looked. I saw that my order number was ready and told her, "Okay, goodbye now." Then I picked up my food and left. When I tell my friends this story, they all laugh, and so do I. But seriously, why would you ask a person to just take off their mask, something that doesn't even bother you in any way? Before I start the story, I'll tell you that the rabbit in this story was extremely tame. She was kicked out of the nest, so I had to bottle feed her for a few weeks. She was loyal and listened to me like a dog. This made it possible for me to walk with her in public and even in forests without her fleeing from me. She always wore a harness and leash when I walked with her. Now on to the story. I was walking with my rabbit to the veterinarian to get her bi-yearly anti-coccidia shot because she had gotten it at a young age and it was the best way to prevent a secondary infection of it. I was not even 5 minutes away from the veterinarian when it happened. A mom and her kid walked by. The kid suddenly tried to pick up my rabbit. She only allowed me to do it, and not everyone else who tried succeeded. She luckily got away from the kid, ran toward me, and started stomping. The entitled mother walked up to me and said, "Thank you for stopping my kid's rabbit." I was absolutely dumbfounded by what she said and instantly picked my rabbit up and put the leash on her harness, just in case. "Excuse me? His rabbit?" "Yes, his rabbit." "Now hand him over." "Wait, what gender did you say it is?" "My rabbit is female." "A boy?" "Now hand him over before I call the police." Having chipped my rabbits in case this exact thing happened, I told her, "Let's head to the veterinarian to check if she is chipped. Then we'll know who her owner is." "It's a he, and I don't accept this. Just hand them over or I will call the police." "The police will tell you the exact same thing I just did if I tell them she is chipped. We will also go to the veterinarian to check." I start walking to the veterinarian's office with my rabbit held tightly to my body. The mother and the kid followed me. At the veterinarian's clinic, I checked my rabbit in for her appointment and didn't have to wait because of the delay dealing with the entitled mother and kid. The vet asked me why I prod them. I can't even start my sentence because she yells, "It is not his rabbit, it's my son's." The vet says, "Oh, I see. I will get the chip reader to check the legal owner." The rabbit's chip is controlled and the vet asks for all of our IDs. Surprise, surprise, I come out as a legal owner. The mother and her kid angrily walk out of the clinic and I and the vet start the appointment. I was about to leave when a couple of police officers and someone from the wildlife ambulance walked in with the mother and kid. "We got a report of a stolen rabbit." The vet instantly says this is a false report, that we already read the chip and found the person who is the legal owner. The wildlife ambulance man then says, "That is why I am here. It is good you say you already checked the chip, so I will do the same from a neutral position." I and the vet instantly accepted this and let him check, but the mother intervened. The wildlife ambulance man says, "Ma'am, if you don't let me do my job, you will be charged with obstructing procedure. But in the time it took for you to come, they could have implanted the chip for this reason." "Ma'am, it takes an hour to implant and put in the correct data for that. Let me do my job." The chip and everyone's ID gets checked. And guess what happened? I was found to be the legal owner. I was asked to press charges, which I happily did and got compensation that was almost enough for the appointment. Well, that will be the end. Backstory. I joined the army right out of high school. During basic training, I volunteered for a unit within the army known as the Old Guard. The Old Guard is responsible for ceremonies in the Washington, D.C. area and funerals in Arlington National Cemetery, among other duties. The Old Guard consists of units you may have heard of, such as a United States Army Drill Team and the Sentinels of the Tomb of the Unknowns, as well as lesser-known platoons such as a Presidential Gun Salute Battery and the United States Army Continental Color Guard. It is the oldest active unit in the Army. Point is, it's a fairly big deal in the Army and in the Washington, D.C. area in general. Story time. It's the 4th of July in Washington, D.C., big celebration, all kinds of stuff going on, and I'm sure you can picture it. Most of the celebration goes on in front of the Capitol on the National Mall. As part of the festivities, my unit, the Presidential Gun Salute Battery, fires the baseline for the performance of the 1812 Overture. 3-inch anti-tank guns firing blanks. Only the more seasoned guys in the platoon get picked to do it. So the rest of us are given a cordoned off area in the very front. We bring some food, some chairs, our families, and we have a cookout during the day and watch the show when it starts. During the earlier parts of the day, it isn't too crowded, but as evening draws near, it becomes packed, nearly shoulder to shoulder. Fortunately, as I mentioned before, we had our own area at the front roped off from the general public, giving us ample room to have our cookout, perk of working for the government. Throughout the day, we would have people politely ask if they could join us. We said no, but were always respectful. We weren't in uniform, but we had our unit t-shirts on, so we were still representing the army. Enter Karen. It's midday through the afternoon, still a few hours before the show. We're enjoying the weather and the time off. I happened to be near the edge of our area when I heard someone behind me. I turn around and there she is, with a pinched face and a haircut that says, "I want to speak to your manager's manager." "Excuse me, young man, could you ask your father to take this road down? This is supposed to be a public area for everyone, and my kids cannot see the Capitol." Mind you, there are signs hanging on a rope every 5 feet explaining the purpose of the rope. Me with my best public relations smile. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This area is reserved for members of the old guard and their families. If you'd like to come back a little closer to dusk, we'll be taking the rope down around then." "The old guard? I've never heard of that before." "Always happy to drop knowledge," I reply. "Ma'am, the old guard is a primary ceremonial unit for the United States Army, an escort to the President of the United States of America." "I don't see the President. Shouldn't you be escorting him or something then?" She rolls her eyes. I had no idea how to respond to that. Fortunately, I was saved. The platoon sergeant places a hand on my shoulder and says, "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Sergeant First Class X. What seems to be a problem?" As I knew this was my cue to get out, I went back to my chair and observed their interaction. I couldn't hear anything, but the interaction concluded with Karen walking away looking annoyed. I didn't think anything else of it until about 2 hours later. We're cleaning up our trash, breaking down the chairs and tables and such, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Karen approaching again. This time with 2 Capitol Police officers in tow. The platoon sergeant must have noticed too. I heard him mutter, "What the heck?" under his breath as he walked to intercept the trio. I didn't hear all of the conversation, but we all heard about it later. The platoon sergeant says, "Officers, what seems to be the problem?" Police officer says, "Sergeant X, we received a report that your soldiers were making lewd gestures and comments towards this lady's family. Is there any truth to this?" The sergeant laughs. "Absolutely not. I've been supervising them all day. Nothing even close to that has happened today." "Yeah, we had assumed that, but we had to follow up. Sorry to bother you." "You mean you're going to just let them sit there and hog up all the space? I drove my kids 9 hours to see this." "Ma'am, these men are here with the expressed permission of the Capitol Police and the District of Columbia. There are signs there, points to a sign not 3 feet away, that explicitly state that." The sergeant, trying to defuse the situation, says, "Ma'am, we're clearing up our area right now. As soon as we're done, we will be removing the rope to let everyone in. If you can be patient and wait, we can get you and your family right up front here in about 20 minutes. Karen proceeded to stare at them much like a cow stares at an incoming train. Then she spun around and walked away without another word. We thought it was all over, so we went back to what we were doing. We were wrong. We're just finishing up, taking the ropes off of the pylons and stacking the pylons in the arms of another guy in the platoon. Out of nowhere, here comes Karen, trailed by her 4 children and an obviously stressed spouse. I'm assuming her spouse. It could have been her boyfriend or the father of her children. "It's about time. Get out of my way." Karen all but screams as she goes barreling right through Private Another Guy. I have to pause here for a second. To be in the old guard, you have to be between 5 foot 10 inches and 6 foot 4 inches and maintain the Army standard of physical fitness. To add to that, the old guard is an infantry unit. If you aren't aware, infantry are generally the frontline soldiers in combat, and we are trained for just that. So suffice it to say, none of us were small or weak. Karen was probably around 180 pounds, so when I say she barreled through this guy, I mean it. She put some force into it. Private Another Guy goes prowling to the ground, steel pylons flying in every direction. A couple hit him in the face, chipped a tooth and split his eyebrow open. One pylon bounces off the ground and hits one of Karen's kids in the leg. The kid, probably 12 or 13, starts wailing like he lost a limb. As we are helping Private Another Guy to his feet, Karen is losing every last ounce of her patience. Red-faced, screaming about how she's going to sue us for assault, how we probably aren't even real soldiers, how we've ruined her family vacation and blah blah blah. At this point, the platoon sergeant is done with her, If Karen thought she was being loud, she quickly learned there are few things louder than a senior non-commissioned officer who is upset. With a single word, he quieted everyone within 15 feet of us. "Stop! That is enough. You have been harassing me and my soldiers all afternoon. We have tried to be nice, we have tried to be respectful. You have been nothing but rude. Now you've injured one of my soldiers. This stops now." I think Karen might have had a small stroke right then. She stood mouth agape, not able to utter a single word. And then, as if right on cue, here comes those two Capitol policemen. They hadn't been far away and had seen the entire incident. I didn't think Karen's eyes could get any wider until the first officer pulled out a pair of cuffs and said, "Ma'am, turn around and put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for assault and harassment." She tried every excuse she could think of, but the police were having exactly none of her nonsense. They talked to Private another guy who wanted to press charges, so they carted her off. I don't know what the father did with the kids. They disappeared when the police took Karen. Come to find out, after Private another guy comes back from the court hearing, Karen had been carrying 3 bottles of pills that weren't hers and 2 stolen credit cards when the police searched her. No idea what kind of time she got, but it wasn't enough. After all was said and done, we watched the 1812 overture and laughed about Karen for weeks afterward. Private another guy was fine, with a chipped tooth and a little bit of bruising. Nothing major, fortunately. So, I have a story for you from my time working at Walmart. This is when I first started out at Walmart back in 2014. I was assigned to the electronics counter. It was near nighttime, and the photo center was closed. It was only me at the stand while others were on break, somewhere in the store or at lunch. Plus, business was slow, so it was fine when I was by myself. But oh boy, was I wrong. About 15 minutes passed when a teenager, the entitled daughter of our story, came up to the counter and placed a cell phone and a box on the counter while I was helping a father, who will be my hero in this story, and you will see why later. I asked the father if he would be alright by himself while I helped another customer, and he was fine with it, browsing the children's movie section. I was about to ask how I could help her, but she just held her hand up at me. I remember this very well when she did it. "I want a refund on this phone. It doesn't work with the plan I have," the entitled daughter says. I looked at the phone and it was a Walmart plan we run with T-Mobile. It's usually not the greatest, but it's a good start on a cell phone plan before switching to the bigger ones. When I looked at the receipt, I already knew this was going to be a handful. To those who don't know, all electronics items can be refunded, but you have to return them within 15 days to get a refund, especially cell phones. Other items are usually 30 or 90 days, depending on the department. When I looked at the receipt, it was way past the 15-day policy, so I could not return it. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I cannot refund this, as it has passed the 15-day return policy." And oh boy, did the entitled daughter not like that. "What do you mean? My mom and I were here a few days ago when we got that thing." "I'm sorry, but I can't. I'm looking at the receipt on the day you purchased the cell phone, and it's way past our policy. I'm sorry, but there is nothing I can do." The entitled daughter lets out a growl and huffs before storming away with a cell phone and receipt. I sighed deeply and leaned into the counter. My hero then came with a few movies and saw the whole thing. He says, "That's pretty rough to deal with, huh?" I just laughed at that and scanned his items. "Oh, you have no idea, sir. And this is just my first month here." We both had a good laugh, and when I gave him his receipt, I saw the entitled daughter once again, but this time with her entitled mother in tow. I knew I was in trouble. "You! Why wouldn't you give my daughter her money back? We brought everything." "I understand, ma'am, but you passed our return policy. Even if I scan it, the serial number won't be in our system anymore." The entitled mother then yelled at me to get the manager while calling me a few colorful names as well. While I phoned management, the mother and daughter had a smug grin on their faces like they had won. Soon, a manager came by and asked what the problem was. The entitled mother says, "Yes, your employee was rude to us and won't refund my daughter's cell phone she paid for a few days ago. I want my money now and this brat fired." Seriously, who does this over cell phones? But then again, Walmart. Wally World is also crazy people world. The manager looked over at me and I tried to explain what was happening, but the entitled mother kept interrupting me while calling me names until my manager saw the receipt. One look at the date and he knew what was up. Okay, ma'am, two things. One, do not cuss at my employee. She's doing her job. And two, you brought this phone a month ago. We cannot refund you for the cell phone because the serial number is no longer in the system. And this is our policy. The entitled mother and daughter frowned at that and then started to cuss at me and my manager for not helping them and not giving them their money back. My hero was watching the whole thing and he stood between us and them. He says, "Ma'am, you need to calm down and you need to control your daughter as well." "This is none of your business," the daughter says. Then the mother adds, "And why should I do what you say about my daughter? They are the ones that won't help us." She points at me and my manager. This was something that I still remember to this day. My hero pulled out his wallet and showed a police badge. He was an off-duty police officer. He then tells him, "I suggest either you two calm down right now, or so help me I will escort you both out in cuffs. This is no way to act out in public. You need to set a better example for your daughter, and you need to control that mouth of yours, kid." The entitled mother and her daughter were dead silent and pale before grabbing the cell phone and the box, then running off. My hero turned to us and apologized for not stepping in sooner. My manager told him it was fine, but I was still dumbfounded that I was helping an off-duty police officer. My hero gave the manager his badge number in case those two came back, and then thanked me for suggesting a few Disney and DreamWorks movies for his kids. He told me he had a young son and a daughter before leaving. My manager asked me if I was okay and I told him I was still baffled that my hero was a police officer and I didn't know that. What was also funny, karma at its finest, was that a few days later the entitled mother and her daughter did the same thing again, but at a different Walmart, and they were both arrested for assault on a police officer and resisting arrest. My hero was talking to my manager while I was on lunch and then told me when I came back. So my hero, if you're out there or reading this post, thank you for helping me out that night. So I'm a 17-year-old female and this is my entitled parent story. My aunt and her 3 children came from Texas to visit us for the weekend. I wasn't happy because her oldest son, who is 19, would always pick on me when I was younger. It was the first time in 10 years that she visited. She comes into our house with the oldest son, a younger son who is 12, and a younger daughter who is 8. I put on my best fake smile and say hi. I tell the 2 youngest that they can go upstairs and play on my Xbox until supper. I sit down beside my twin brother and my mom. I do lots of video editing and Photoshop and so on. Final Cut Pro X is my software of choice. I got a 15-inch MacBook Pro a few months ago because of this, as my 2013 iMac wasn't cutting it. As everyone was talking and my brother and I were using our phones because our mom said we had to be down here to catch up with everyone, my entitled aunt went upstairs to see the house. I followed her and offered to show her around the house. When she went up there, she saw my MacBook and asked whose it was. And this is how the conversation went down. "Krusty, whose laptop is that?" "Oh, that's my laptop." "Can I hold it?" Sure." She holds it. "Wow, Krusty, this feels nice. Can I keep it?" "Absolutely not." "I'll pay you. This was probably like $500. This is a $5,000 laptop. I worked hard for this thing. I'm not just going to give it to you." "Krusty, I deserve it. I haven't seen you guys in 10 years and you don't even get me a gift." "Is that my fault?" "I don't think so." "Well, since you won't give it to me, you shouldn't be able to use it either." This lady opened the laptop, threw it on the ground, and then stepped on it with her high heels. If we had carpeted floors, the laptop would have probably been fine. But we don't. And once she stepped on it, I knew it was done. I called my mom and dad, and then they came running up. My mom asked why she did it, and she literally mumbled, "Because she wouldn't give it to me." She and all her children are banned from our house. I am turning 18 in less than a week, so I will wait until I'm officially an adult to be able to sue her for damages. Wish me luck. Edit. I have filed a police report and we're going to court. I'm 18 now. I can sue this person for my money. The trial is tomorrow. Update. I won the case. I showed pictures and everything to the judge and my mom and dad heard the screaming, and when they came up they saw her stepping on a laptop and took pictures. She owes me a lot of money. I am so happy. I am so happy. This happened a few years ago, back when Corona was just a beer and before daily temperature checks in schools were required. My son was in his first year of preschool, and almost on a daily basis I volunteered in his classroom. My great aunt happened to be my son's teacher. She's part of what inspired me to become a teacher myself. On this particular day, it was very cold outside and we were in the middle of flu season. One child came in on time and, in a sea of children, it was not obvious that he was sick. It was only when his mother had left and the boy was sitting at the table for breakfast that we could tell he was not feeling well. I will call him Nice Kid because he really was a sweet little boy. The nice kid looked pale and had a runny nose. I went over to him and said, "Hey kid, how are you? Did you enjoy that snow day yesterday?" "Yeah," he said drowsily. "You feeling okay, bud?" "Not really." I reached out and placed my hand on his forehead, and the poor boy was on fire. I immediately alerted the teacher. "My aunt, Miss Aunt, I think this kid is sick. He's very hot." My aunt came over with a handheld thermometer they kept in their medical cabinet and took his temperature. It was 102 Fahrenheit, 38.8 Celsius for anyone who uses Celsius. The school didn't have a nurse on site, so we took the nice kid to the small lobby. I gave him a cup of water to sip on while my aunt called his mom. "Hello, Mrs. Entitled Mother. This is X from the Nice Kid School. I need you to return my call as soon as possible. Your kid has a 102-degree fever, and he can't be at school when he's sick. Please call me back at this number." My aunt came back into the lobby and checked the nice kid's temperature again. It was still 102 Fahrenheit. Since there was another teacher in the classroom, my aunt and I stayed with the kid. I kept trying to cheer him up and make him more comfortable, while my aunt kept trying to call his mother. Finally, after about 30 minutes of trying to get a hold of his mother, my aunt got through. And the following conversation is what my aunt told me was said. My aunt says, "Mrs. Entitled Mother, I'm glad you picked up. Your kid is sick. He's got a 102-degree fever. We need you to come pick him up." "Yeah, I know he's sick, but I don't have anyone to watch him, and I'm already 45 minutes away. I'm late for my lunch date." "I understand you have plans, but I think your son is a little more important. If you knew he was sick, then he should never have come to school. I'm sorry, but you need to come pick him up. He's going to have to wait until I'm back in town. I'm going to be there for a few hours. Just let him nap on his cot. He'll be fine." "Ma'am, I think we have a misunderstanding. You need to pick him up now. He cannot be here." "Like I said, I will pick him up when I'm back in town. Good day." The entitled mother hangs up and my aunt tries several times to call her back with no answer. After another 30 minutes, the nice kid's temperature jumped to 103 Fahrenheit and he was acting very lethargic. At this point, my aunt and her supervisor, who had arrived late to work due to her car breaking down, decided to call an ambulance. Within 10 minutes, the nice kid was loaded into an ambulance and on his way to the local hospital. After this, I took my son home and we stayed home for a few days just to ensure we didn't catch whatever the nice kid may have had. I was overly cautious about sickness even before COVID, but not too cautious to not help. My aunt is not allowed to tell me what happened to the entitled mother after this, but I do know that Child Protective Services got involved, and the nice kid did recover. From that day on, his grandparents were the ones to drop him off and pick him up. I have not seen the entitled mother since. My aunt has hinted that the mother is losing custody.